In this video we're doing an installation of a Wagner oil cooler kit on a T6. So why would you want to spend nearly €1,000 on an oil cooler? Well, the T6 has got a well-known reputation for engine failure on the 204 PS bi-turbo engine. The engine failure is caused by cooking the oil at over 115 degrees C during normal use. You can monitor the engine oil temperature by cycling through the onboard computer while you're driving. Okay, as well as having the cooler, we're going to need some coolant water, some oil, an oil filter, and a set of replacement gaskets for the oil filter housing, which we're going to remove from the engine during the job. The coolant water needs to be the G12 spec with the Evo written afterwards for the dual turbo engines. So let's open it up. This is the cooler. This is the box of installation components. Inside we've got this bag of fixations. Also included what looks like some sort of Loctite 2701, looks good. And these are the fixation brackets. This is partly why I ordered this one from Wagner and not from Redhead Engineering. I thought these were really slick, that this looked like something that had been engineered properly. We've also got zip ties, a little bit of some sort of protective plastic, and we've got the hydraulic pipes for the connections to and from the engine, and this is the thermostat housing. Oh, there you go, it's got the Wagner Engineering logo machined into it. Looks very nice. Going to be a shame that we don't see it because it's going to be deep inside the engine. Okay, so the kit comes with some pretty basic instructions. The first step is to remove the bumper and the grille from the car. I jack the car and remove the wheels so that I can get the wheel liners out more easily. First I do the 4 clips along the top edge of the grille. There are 4 screws and 1 clip to remove from each wheel arch. Then there's 2 screws underneath the bumper on each side. You can now pull the liner down to reveal the fixing between the fender and the bumper. The fixation is removed with a small Allen key like so. You can then carefully pull the bumper away from the body. With the corner released, you can remove this cable connector that connects the wiring harness from the car to the bumper. It's on the right hand side. There's a special VW cable release tool that makes this a lot easier. With both corners released, you can then attack the clips in the middle of the bumper. There's about 8 clips in total and they are really resistant. Oh man, I really just feel like it's got a hidden screw somewhere. Okay, so got my hand. Okay. Shit. So the clips that I was really fighting with there were the ones that go into this bracket just here. So maybe look at those. The clip in the middle was that one, and the clips on the bottom edge that I pulled were these ones here. Set it down carefully and we will now disconnect the pipe that runs down the back of the bumper. That pipe's got the washer fluid in it for the headlamps. What? When you disconnect it, all of the washer fluid in the washer fluid reservoir is going to run out. I now remove the plastic reinforcement for the bumper so that I can access the cooler. The wiring harness remains on the car and must be carefully unclipped from the plastic part. I was feeling a bit overwhelmed at this point in the project, so I just quickly loosely fitted the oil cooler in its final position to give myself some encouragement. The next step is to remove this plastic trim so you can drain out the cooling water. It's held on with 6 bolts. Behind the trim you can see this sensor. It's the lowest point in the cooling system and a good place to drop out the coolant from. The next step is to remove the reservoir from the cooler system so that we can access the pipes on the back of the radiators. There are a lot of connections onto the reservoir which you need to disconnect. The hose on the bottom of the reservoir is particularly difficult to get off and you need a special tool. So these clips work by, that goes into there, and then that one goes into there. And then you open it completely and then position it where you want and then release it. The next challenge is to disconnect the 2 connectors on the right side of the small water cooler that I'm illuminating down that hole. There is a sponge door which you can pull back. You can then get your hand into the hole and release the connector. The connectors have a metal locking ring which you have to push into the open position with a screwdriver. There are then 2 screws holding the cooler in place. Once removed, the cooler can be taken off the car. I'm going to take the top hose from the larger of the 2 radiators. So pull that clip up into the released position. I have to remove it, and then a bit difficult with one hand. In fact, that joint was really difficult to split. It did eventually split, but yeah, it was quite a fight. Next, you want to unclip that hydraulic line that goes across from the steering top-up bottle to the steering pump. Don't break any of the joints on that pipe and just let it hang. Now we're going to remove the 4 screws that keep the fan and radiator in place. So there's a screw just there you need to remove, and then you can pull that little block down into that position. So this bit's really tricky. I don't know if you can see it because it's all black, but there's a rubber piece just here where the foot from the water cooler sits onto the bumper beam, and this plate and screw is screwed in from underneath and holding the whole assembly in position. And what you need to do is you have to loosen this screw so that you can get your little T30 wrench on from underneath and on the inside of the car, and then you can remove that plate, and then the whole cooler is then loose and ready to lift off. You've got the same 2 fixings on the left hand side. So now we can pull the cooler forward a little bit and get to the fan connector, which is down at the bottom just there. There's a red locking tab on it, and then you just need to press that tab enough so that it flexes the plug and it passes over those little tabs just there on the male part of the socket. The last job to do is to remove the rubber flexible hose from the bottom of the radiator just here. You need to release the clip that looks like this from underneath, and then the hose will come free. The part I'm now holding is the air conditioning cooler. There are 2 clips on the top left and right side which need to be released, and it can be separated from the larger radiator and fan. The air conditioning cooler can be left connected to the car. We should be able to work around it. It's lucky that the bolts retaining the radar onto the bumper beam are plastic so that they don't damage the radiator. The big cooler and fan assembly is quite heavy and difficult to rotate out of the car. So with the cooler out of the way, we can now get access to the oil system and remove the old oil cooler and install our new oil cooler. At this point, I joined the T6 forum as a VIP member so that I could access the download area and get the instructions for engine service. In those instructions, you've got the stripped down instructions for removing the oil filter housing and, more importantly, how to reinstall it with the correct torques on the bolts. This information is also available on the Irwin website from Volkswagen, which I've shown in some of my other videos. The first step is to remove the engine front mount so we can gain access to the bolts on the filter housing. Before I remove the front mounting point from the engine, I've jacked the engine just a little bit and placed a stack of wood underneath to stop it from dropping. There are several bolts on the engine and body that need to be loosened, then it simply lifts off. I'm backing up the bolts as I go for each component so that it's easy to put things back on. Now I slide this clip out of position and then pull the pipe off. So the bolts need to be taken out in order. So first one is just there, second one down there, third one down that hole, there's a fourth one down there as well, and then a fifth one above the oil temperature sensor, and it is one of these Volkswagen 12 spline sockets. So carefully remove all 5 screws. Right, so I'm just going to prepare this guy to mount it. So I'm just going to give the mounting surface a quick clean. With some alcohol. Lightly try it. Prise out the old seals and replace with the 4 new seals that we bought.
Ugh. Just going fucking everywhere.
Do your best to clean up the housing. Mount the new thermostat. Slightly misunderstood the instructions here and actually put Loctite on these screws. Hopefully that won't be a problem. I tighten them up in a crosswise pattern and then I finish them off with my bicycle torque wrench to 6 newtons on each screw. I then cleaned up the sealing surfaces on the engine block itself so that we get a nice seal. I then loosely bolted the housing back onto the engine and then followed the tightening sequence to tighten each nut up to 20 newtons per metre. Then follow the same sequence again, giving each nut another 90 degrees of rotation. So now we're going to fit the hoses to the thermostat body. So we need to recover these adapters from the hoses, and the bit that goes into the thermostat body is an M22.
And the bit that the pipe fitting on the other side is an Imperial, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eighths of an inch. So these guys need the Loctite. So I'll put a little drizzle in there.
Right. The pipe on the right side is slightly longer than the pipe on the left side. And that's the pipes laid in approximately the right direction. The thermostat is now installed. That goes down at this angle to avoid hitting the fan. It then points down to here. I then retain it to this plastic T-piece. I've kept the wire in front there, and then I've gone behind the pipes that go up to the main reservoir, and then it's going to come out over here where it's needed. So now I'm going to attempt to reinstall the engine mount. So I'll just offer it into position. There are 5 bolts. They should all be done up loosely before finally tightening the whole thing into place. If that's not going in easily, you need to just jack the sump a little bit. I've tightened everything, and now I'm going to torque them up. So let's get onto that guy. So 50 newtons. Now we give it 90 degrees. So from there, the handle down to there. If we can manage it. Oh, you fucker. There you go. There's your 90. Right, do the one on the underneath. Access wasn't so good underneath, so I torqued them up to the 50 Newton meters, painted them, and then rotated them with a regular wrench. The nut and screw to retain that bracket only require 40 newtons. Don't forget to reattach the harness. I then reinstalled the fan and the first 2 radiators back onto the car. It's pretty tricky getting those 2 rubber feet seated correctly. So that pipe doesn't rub on that bracket, I'm just going to put a bit of that protective stuff that came in the kit on there. I'll now Loctite the adapter and the fixation bracket onto the cooler itself.
Generous line of Loctite around that bolt.
The cooler is then finally fitted and looking great. So I offered up the second cooler, and there's a little interference with the mounting bracket. You need to trim it away as shown. Now fit the cooler onto the car. Don't forget to fit that sponge door on the right side of the radiator before you fit the final radiator. Reconnect the 3 quick connectors on the back of the radiator. They've all got a seal inside them, and those seals should be replaced. I didn't replace them, but I did give them a spray with silicone spray just to make sure they slipped on easily. I also rotated the big clip on the back of the radiator 180 degrees so that it wasn't in contact with the new oil line. Now reinstall the water reservoir and reconnect all of the connectors to it. So you also need to take care that there's a clearance just here. Apparently these pipes pulse a little bit with the oil pump, so they have to be isolated from the body, otherwise you hear a knocking sound from the engine. I rerouted the pipe going down so that it really twists around the air conditioning pipe, and make sure that that clip there is in place so there's no chance the pipe can fall into the pulley, and you need to make sure that all these little doors can open freely. Check that the joints going into the cooler are nice and tight. It says in the instructions that you can leave this bracket off, but I just cut the plastic around to create a bit of clearance around that connection. You have to make sure that you relocate the air intake for the engine into that little point there. There are also 2 little clips there that have to be correctly positioned, and the flap goes underneath there, and then that clip retains it. So all reinstallation work is complete. Now I need to top up the water and oil and give it a test before reinstalling the bumper. So this is the plan for all of the cooling pipes where the water goes to and from, and as you can see it's pretty complicated. There's no way that by simply pouring liquid in at this point that we're going to fill all of these pipes without any air pockets. So Volkswagen recommends using a vacuum pump like this. So we're just going to leave that on for a few minutes and check that the system can hold the vacuum, and that will confirm that all of the joints are perfect. And the vacuum is still holding. So I'm going to now turn this on.
And it should draw the fluid into the system. So I've got to be careful here that it doesn't start sucking air in. Right, I'm getting close to the bottom there, so I'm just going to swap to the next one.
That's no longer drawing any fluid. I can turn that tap off. So the next step is to use a service tool like VCDS to run the bleed process on the car. That's going to require the engine to be running. To run the engine, I need to add a litre of oil to compensate for the oil that's been lost and the capacity of the new oil cooler. This is my diagnostic tool. It's a laptop with VCDS software set up on it. I've got a cable which I bought from VCDS, and I'm going to run the diagnostic program to do the bleed on the cooling system and clear any remaining air that's stuck in it. The image on the screen shows the process which I'm going to follow. It can be found on the VCDS website. So VCDS is started. I've got the ignition in position 1. So the lights are on the dashboard, but the engine isn't running. And I'm now going to select the control module for the engine.
So I need to unlock the module, so 27971 should do that. Security code has been accepted, great. Now we go to adaptations, and we are going to activate the bleeding process. So activate the bleeding process. Is it that one? 8287, yep. So at the moment that is not active. We want to change that to active. And we want to do it. Yes. Okay, so we can now go back to the basic settings.
So the first thing to do is we need to show the measurable values so that we can follow the process.
So there's lots of things we can choose, but the ones we want to choose are IDE0002, and we want engine speed 725. Okay, so now we can minimize
That window, so now all these values are showing. So at this point, we can start the engine.
Now we go down to the test bleed circuits and press go.
Now we need to follow the on-screen prompts. Alright, so I'm going to press the brake pedal. So I'm pressing on the brake pedal, release the brake pedal, press the accelerator fully. Release the accelerator. So now the computer has taken over control of the engine. You can hear that the revs have climbed, and you can see that also on the status. So that process runs for about 8 to 10 minutes, and the engine revs rise and fall, controlled by the computer. Eventually the process ends. Right, so that has concluded. So I now press
Stop.
done and go back. And now I can turn the engine off. but only to position 1. That means the ignition is still on and VCDS is still connected. And there is no visible leaks on the car, which is good. And I've checked the level of the fluid. Carefully open this because the fluid is now hot. And there's still plenty of fluid in the tank, so we can now do the second step in the bleed process. So we're going to go back into basic settings. We're going to show the measured data again. And this time we need all of the same fields again.
IDE 00021 engine speed. So move that over to there. And we're going to do the 4795. Okay. So go.
So the engine isn't running now. That's intentional. While the bleed process is going, you can hear the pumps and bubbling in the tank. So after about 12 to 13 minutes, that has finally finished. So we now need to run that another 2 times. Click on stop, reselect the bleeding of the low temperature circuit from the drop down and press go to restart the process. You need to make sure that the voltage on your car battery doesn't drop too low while this is going. My car hasn't been run for quite a while and the battery isn't in great shape, so I've slapped on a power supply to maintain it while it's running. So that's finished correctly the 3rd time. Now I'm going to stop the process.
Okay, done and go back. Then I need to turn the adaptation for the bleed process into the not active position. Yep. Okay. Go back. Close controller. Go back.
And we can now turn off the ignition. Check that the tank level is correct, somewhere between the minimum and that black cable that's running horizontally around the tank, and the bleed process is complete. So according to the instructions, all work is done. I am, however, going to do an additional oil change before I put the car back together. An oil change is recommended by tuningbus.de that actually sell this kit and sell a fitting service for €600, which I don't think is too bad given how long it's taken me. The oil is changed on a warm engine. You need to run it for about 10 minutes. So, surprisingly with this car, the first thing to do when doing the oil change is actually to change the oil filter. When I remove the oil filter, it's going to release a valve which is going to release the oil in the oil filter back into the sump. So that needs to be done before you drain the sump. So the first thing to do is take that little nut out of the centre of the oil cap. Shouldn't be on too tight.
Ready? Steady?
So that's now stopped running. I'm going to just temporarily put that back in there so that 32mm socket. And now I've broken the seal.
Short stubby wrench on there. I should be doing it by hand now, I think. Okay.
So let's see how much oil goes everywhere. Hopefully not much.
Okay.
So I've fitted the new seal there, the new filter, seal on the little drain plug, and torque that up to 10 newtons. So I'll reinstall that guy carefully by hand. Clean the area with brake cleaner. and that then gets 25 newtons, which is not much. So the drain plug is right at the back there. I've not got the car jacked up, so you can get to it on the ground. Okay, so I've got my little wrench onto it. Fucking hell. Oh, pants. Okay, so that should be about, I think, 7.5 litres of oil needing to come out of there, so we'll leave that to it. The sump bolt and washer is a single piece and needs to be replaced. Got to be super careful not to cross thread this. And 30 newtons, so not much. So I've poked 2 holes into the top of the lid like that with a screwdriver so that the oil doesn't flow too quickly. And now I can easily pour that. So I've added about an extra litre of oil to account for the oil cooler. That's 8.5 litres in total. So we're right at the maximum. We're not over it, that's okay. So it's finally time to refit the bumper. So when I bring the bumper up to the car, I need to connect this pipe to this connector here on the washer fluid reservoir. That was originally rotated into that position like that, which was incredibly difficult to access when removing the bumper. So I'm going to turn it round to that position and see if that works. Hopefully it's not a problem, and it'll just make it a lot easier for the next person that has to take that bumper off. Putting the bumper back onto the car is really easy. It literally was just a case of lining up the clips underneath both of the headlights, engaging those, and then all the other clips with a slight push, and it was done. Remember to install that electrical connection on the right hand side of the bumper. Then you need to put in all the clips inside the bumper and underneath and refit the wheel arch liners. So the job is done. The only thing left to do is to take it for a test drive, get it up to temperature and recheck the oil. The project is complete. The oil cooler is fitted, and I hope that the video that I've made of the project shows you how much work is actually involved and whether or not it's worth booking it into a garage. I'm really chuffed to have saved the money that I would have spent paying someone else to do it. What am I going to do with that money? This is the question. Well, what I'm going to do with that money is buy a subwoofer to go underneath the passenger seat, and that is going to be our next video.